And what are some of the penalties for those cases?
Not severe enough. It's $50 per worker per day, $75 if there's any overtime involved, and then miscellaneous other penalties. But there's some contractors that basically know this going in. They put that amount on the side. If they get busted, they pay it. They pay the worker. They pay the penalty. It's a cost of doing business. Others, unfortunately, factor that into their bid. They get busted and they have to go out of business because they can't pay the penalties. Or we've opened up private action cases against them.
What is a private action case?
Well, we get an attorney, and you have 20 workers that are claiming work. That can get into a few $1 million. It's tough for a contractor to recoup from that.
Mr. Griego, we hear so much about workers entering the job force, but what are they doing with the money that they make? Is it being funneled back into U.S. markets, or is it heading out of the country?
Well, it's probably both. The intent, I would think, for most low-wage immigrant workers is to go back to their home country, especially if they have family. So the idea is maybe to come for a while and then save money up and go back. If the intent is to stay here, then they would try to save enough money to either start a business, own some property, etc. But at the same time, sending money back if they have family. So if there's family involved, the money goes back, as well as some subsistent money to survive.
Okay, well, this is kind of a follow-up question, but is there a general pattern that they follow? I mean, are they trying to get back home, or in most cases, are they trying to get settled in the United States?
I mean, once again, it depends on the individual situation. If there's family back home and the family is intent on staying home, then the worker would probably want to try to save enough money to build a home where they're in their home country and have a life there. If there's no future in their home country and the male, in this case, is in the United States working, the idea was to save enough money to bring his remaining family members to the United States.
Frank, do you think that we should offer undocumented workers amnesty for being productive?
The reality is that they fill a void that some Americans just won't do. There's a famous story of a chicken coop, a chicken house in Central Valley somewhere, where they had numerous workers. They were raided by the IRS. They were all deported. There was a line out the door of Americans because it was actually decent pay. I believe they lasted all of a couple of months. I don't know if you've ever been in a chicken coop. It smells to high heaven, and it didn't last very long. And sooner or later, undocumenteds come back and they took the work because it was either that or close down the business. Let's just be honest with ourselves. There's some certain work you're not going to see native-born Americans working at car washes for tips. It's not going to happen.
And the same question to you. Do you think we should offer productive members, undocumented workers, amnesty?
Well, the irony is, as you asked the question today, historically, the United States has done that. I mean, 24 years ago, under President Reagan, there's a huge amnesty program. So this country, believe it or not, has some of the most friendly immigrant laws in the world. I mean, as everyone says, the cliche is we're a country of immigrants, and we are a country of immigrants. And so historically, while we've been anti-immigrant historically, at the same time historically, we've been pro-immigrant. So that's the dichotomy of the irony of the United States political environment as well as the legal environment. We have provided amnesty, and we probably will continue to do that because the workers who have come, the immigrants who have come, have been very influential and very important to the growth of our country. And so I think not only personally I agree that, or I support amnesty for workers, but this country legally and constitutionally has done that over the years.
And for different work groups, like agricultural workers or construction workers, should there be different policies?
Well, let's put it this way. Let's not even when you talk about agricultural workers, it's not even about immigrant workers. Let's just start with American workers. American agriculture workers do not have the same rights as workers in the construction industry, in the service industry, in the Hollywood industry. So let's start with just American workers in the agriculture business to begin with. They do not have the same rights as a regular American worker, whether, I don't know if you knew that or not. But agriculture workers do not have, if you go into Utah, they don't have the same rights they have in California. You go into Colorado, they have the same rights in Texas. And so agriculture workers have never been treated as a regular worker for a number of reasons, both political and economic reasons. So yes, I think all workers should be treated as human beings. As people say, all workers in the eyes of God are legal. So if God thinks we're legal, then everybody should be given the same type of rights.
Could you elaborate a little bit more on the political reasons?
Well, there's ideology that says if you don't look like me, if you don't talk like me, then you don't belong here. I mean, in 1902, in the state of Wisconsin, the governor tried to get rid of German schools because Lutherans were speaking German and they didn't want, you know, and this is back in the 1900s, you know. In the mid 1800s, you had the Chinese exclusionary laws where they didn't want Chinese immigrants. So many times, politically, people don't want the other, right? They don't want the other. I don't look like you. You don't look like me. I don't speak your language. You don't speak, English, and so, you shouldn't be here.
Mr. Negrete, have you personally seen the number of undocumented workers being cheated pay increase or decrease since you've been on the job?
We've seen it increase. Sadly, we've even seen it increase amongst our signatory contractors. And again, it's a sign of the times. It's a tough time. So yeah, it's gotten worse because the times have gotten worse. If you got more work, you're going to make more money. You're going to be less likely to want to cheat. Work is tough, and again, sadly, even amongst some of our signatory contractors, we have to keep an eye on them because they're trying to cut corners as well, and it's always going to be on labor.
Can you explain what a signatory contractor is?
Signatory contractor is a union contractor, somebody who's signed a union contract with one of the building trades. And again, but we support the signatory and the compliant. So we have a lot of what we call compliant contractors that are not necessarily signatory contractors, as they just help us keep the level playing field.
Do undocumented workers have any negative effects on the economy?
Well, some will argue that they undermine a competitive wage structure, that they'll work for lower wages and then therefore bring down the wage for the remaining workers. So that's an argument that has been used many times when trying not to support undocumented workers.
So are they taking jobs? And what kind of jobs? I mean, what kind of jobs are they looking for?
Well, I think as Frank mentioned, there's been numerous examples where they don't take jobs. They're filling the positions that others won't do. What was this guy, the comedian Colbert? Is that his name?
Yes.
He went out and worked one day as a farm worker, right?
Yes.
And he went and testified in Congress, says, please don't let me do that again. So I think there's evidence that the jobs that undocumented, low-skilled workers do are the jobs that others won't.
And let's not also forget that, like, for example, I come across a lot of workers that work every single day, and come April 15th, and they pay taxes, and come April 15th, they don't file for taxes because they're afraid of being caught. They don't, there's this big thing about, oh my God, they're using all these social services, and the reality is a lot of the times when they're undocumented, they're not going to use any of the social services. They're not going to file for taxes for fear of being caught. So those are all, especially amongst the taxes, those are all, that's all funding and money that never gets claimed by it. You claim your taxes, I claim Victor claims his taxes, but you have millions of undocumented workers nationally that never even file for taxes. They may be working under a false social, and again, those taxes are never claimed.